Hey everyone, welcome back to the Ayla Mao Hour. Today we're diving into some truly fascinating history. 3 potential UFO sightings that occurred during the American Civil War. If you're new here, make sure to hit that subscribe button because we're all about bringing you the most mind-blowing stories and evidence surrounding extraterrestrial encounters. Let's rewind to 1862. Remember, this was a time before airplanes or other powered flight. The Union Army was camped out near Fort Ethan Allen, Virginia, when suddenly, strange lights appeared in the night sky. According to eyewitness accounts, these mysterious lights moved erratically, sometimes darting around at incredible speeds, other times hovering motionless. The soldiers were baffled, and understandably so. They had no explanation for what they were seeing. Some even reported that the lights seemed to be communicating with each other through pulses or flashes. The first person to spot them was Private John Martin, who was keeping watch one night when he spotted what he described as a dozen or more lights dancing in the sky. He said they were bright, like lanterns, but they moved in ways that no lantern could possibly move. Sometimes they'd zip around so fast that they were just blurs in the sky. Other times they'd hover completely still, almost as if they were observing the camp below. Then, Sergeant Thomas Jennings had a similar experience a few nights later. He reported seeing multiple lights, each about the size of a large star, moving in intricate pattern. In his report, Jennings initially assumed that the strange lights in the sky must be Confederate spies using some sort of new technology to gather intelligence on Union positions. He even ordered his men to keep their eyes peeled and their rifles ready, just in case these mysterious lights were a prelude to an enemy attack. Jennings described the lights as being bright and erratic, moving in ways that defied logic. Sometimes they'd dart around at incredible speeds. Other times they'd hover motionless, almost as if they were observing the camp below. He said they seemed to be communicating with each other, flashing in sequences that almost looked like Morse code. But as the nights went on, Jennings started to realize that whatever was causing these lights wasn't human. He wrote about feeling an overwhelming sense of unease, a primal fear that he couldn't quite put into words. He even claimed to have heard a faint humming sound coming from the direction of the lights, a sound that sent chills down his spine. In the end, Jennings concluded that these lights were something beyond his comprehension, something that didn't fit into any known category of warfare or espionage. And he wasn't alone in his confusion. Other soldiers reported similar encounters, each one adding to the growing sense of mystery and dread that hung over their camp. But perhaps the most detailed account comes from Captain James Harrington. He wrote a lengthy report describing an encounter with a massive circular object that he estimated to be at least 100 feet in diameter. Harrington said the craft hovered silently overhead for several minutes before emitting a blinding flash of light, so intense that it temporarily blinded everyone who witnessed it. When their vision cleared, the craft was gone, leaving behind only a strange, sweet odor that lingered in the air for hours. Harrington described the smell as being unlike anything he'd ever encountered before, almost floral, but with an underlying metallic tang. But here's where it gets really creepy. Harrington claimed that after the object disappeared, several of his men started reporting bizarre symptoms. They complained of headaches, nausea, and a feeling of being watched or followed. Some even said they'd woken up with strange marks on their bodies, like small cuts or burns, that weren't there when they went to sleep. Now, fast forward to July 1864. Confederate General John Bell Hood was leading his troops in the Atlanta campaign when something inexplicable happened. In the middle of a fierce battle, an enormous glowing object appeared overhead. Witnesses described it as being larger than any known air balloon at the time, with an almost metallic sheen to its surface. Now here's where it gets wild. Both sides opened fire on this mysterious craft, thinking it must be some sort of advanced spy balloon sent by the enemy. They unleashed everything they had: rifle fire, artillery, the works. But nothing seemed to affect the object. It just hovered there silently, as if mocking their attempts to shoot it down. Some soldiers reported seeing figures moving inside the craft, but they couldn't make out any details. Others claimed that the object emitted a strange humming sound, like nothing they'd ever heard before. And then, just as suddenly as it appeared, the craft shot off into the distance at an unbelievable speed, leaving behind only stunned and confused soldiers on both sides of the conflict. The Union government was determined to get to the bottom of this mystery. They were convinced that the glowing object must have been some sort of advanced spy balloon developed by Confederate engineers. Fearing a massive gap in their otherwise huge technological advantage, they launched a top-secret operation to track down the masterminds behind this technology. Now, here's where things get really interesting. The Union intelligence network managed to intercept a coded message from Confederate troops. This message hinted at a secret project called Lift Ship. According to the decoded intel, the Confederacy had been working on developing massive, gas-filled balloons that could stay aloft for days at a time, silently observing enemy positions from much higher than other balloons. The Union started putting the pieces together. Could this lift ship be the same object that both armies had fired upon? If so, then the Confederacy had an incredible technological advantage that could turn the tide of the war. But here's the kicker. Despite their best efforts, the Union never found any concrete evidence of this lift ship project during the war. No drawings, no prototypes, nothing. And when the war finally ended, none of the captured Confederate engineers or documents ever mentioned anything about a top-secret airship program. Finally, December 1863, to the Battle of Lookout Mountain in Tennessee. As Union forces prepared to launch an attack, a bizarre aerial display unfolded above. This battle could turn the tide of the entire campaign, but little did those soldiers know that something truly otherworldly was about to unfold overhead. It was just before dawn when Private Samuel Thompson, a young soldier from Ohio, noticed strange lights dancing in the pre-dawn sky. At first, he thought they might be Confederate signal flares, but as he watched, the lights began to move in impossible patterns, weaving and darting like fireflies on steroids. Soon, dozens of his fellow soldiers had gathered around, all of them equally baffled by the aerial display above them. As the minutes ticked by, the lights started to coalesce into distinct shapes, bright, disc-like objects that hovered silently over the battlefield. Some of the discs were small, no bigger than a man's hand held out at arm's length. Others were massive, easily the size of a barn or even larger. And they weren't just hovering, they were moving in intricate formations, almost like they were communicating with each other through some kind of silent dance. Private Thompson later wrote a letter home describing what he saw. "Dearest mother, I cannot find the words to describe the horror and awe I felt as I beheld the unearthly sight above our camp last night. The sky was filled with glowing lights of every size, moving in ways that defy all of my reason and understanding. Some of us wept with fear, while others stood transfixed, unable to look away. I myself felt a deep chill, as if God's angels were bidding us welcome from above. For half a watch these lights danced above us, their intent unknown. I have prayed constantly since that God is with us." Some witnesses claim to have seen figures moving inside the discs. The entire spectacle lasted for over an hour before the objects suddenly vanished without a trace. The strange aerial display lasted for over an hour, and during that time, the Union Army was in complete disarray. Soldiers were too busy gawking at the sky to focus on their upcoming attack. Officers struggled to maintain order and discipline among their ranks. Some even claimed that the mysterious objects emitted a low humming sound that made it impossible to think straight or follow commands. In the end, the Union's attack on Lookout Mountain was delayed by several hours due to the distraction caused by these unexplained phenomena. And when they finally did launch their assault, many of the soldiers reported feeling a lingering sense of unease, as if they were being watched by something far beyond their comprehension. So what do you make of all this? Perhaps mass hysteria, or divine sign from above? Or could there be something extraterrestrial at play here? I'll leave you with that mind-blowing question. Let me know what you think in the comments. Thanks for joining me on another trip down the rabbit hole of UFO history. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more mind-bending content. Until next time, keep your eyes on the skies and your minds open to the possibilities.